Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today's June 17th, and right now we are looking at the visible satellite imagery. If I put this into motion, this is yesterday, and you can see we did have a few thunderstorms down there just to the north of Lakeview, across some portions of northeast Oregon and portions of the Rocky Mountains of Idaho and Montana. Some stronger storms off across the plains yesterday as well. But as we scroll through the day yesterday, you can see that pretty glorious day out there for much of the region. We go into the overnight hours and we're back towards this morning right now. You can see the clouds starting to encroach on the coast a bit more. We're going to start to bring a system in here, and then we've got a stronger system as we go through the weekend here, and that's when we're going to talk about in a little bit more detail here. Waiting for the high resolution models to get in range still, but we do have some thunderstorms possible. We have some rainfall returning here. We're really going to bring the temperatures down as we go through portions of the weekend, so stay tuned for that as we go through the video this morning. Lightning strikes yesterday. You can see again some of the thunderstorm activity as it moved up across the area. Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. No strikes for the state of Washington. A few strikes across British Columbia as well. And if you want your own affordable home weather station, click on that link down below. Help support the channel. It's got a lightning detection system on it. You will not regret it. Highly recommend that station. And if you want to go to the Patreon page also, you can help support the channel here, or you can just get my daily updates on my videos. There is a free way to join the channel as well. So anyway, looking at thunderstorms over the next 3 days, you can see day 2, some of Montana there, and some of Idaho on day 3, but nothing for Washington, Oregon. But that is probably going to change as we go towards the upcoming weekend, so stay tuned for that. Gusty winds Wednesday, we got fire danger, and kind of typical for this time of year, and during the afternoon and evening hours here, some of these winds are going to be gusty and higher potential for a quick fire spread in dry grasses. And we do have a fire weather watch out there, some gusts at 30 miles per hour, and some lower relative humidities are the reason for that. And just a heads up, housekeeping here, as of June 16th, Salem, Oregon transmitter is currently down. So if you're having trouble with that and you're in Salem, Oregon, or you're tuning into that station down there using your NOAA weather radio, that is down at least for now. So they're trying to troubleshoot that. So looking at the North American model, you can see we are, we relax these winds as we go through the early morning hours. But once we get to the afternoon and evening hours, we pick up these westerlies as we go through this evening. Then we go on into tomorrow on Wednesday. And again, that's why that fire danger is out there. And mariners out there, you see the westerly winds, kind of typical for this time of year. The onshore flow will be with us. It's going to continue that way as we go on into the month. The second half of June here is probably going to remain the same. I'll show you some of the extended forecasts here in a moment as well. Now, looking at 2-meter dew point depression. So this is the difference between temperature at the surface and the dew point. So watch as we go through the afternoon and evening hours east of the mountains. You can kind of see, you can imagine the atmosphere is pretty thirsty out there. Again, the temperature dew point difference between 50 and 60 degrees difference here. So quite dry. So some of those gusty winds can help exacerbate those fire conditions. There we go through Wednesday afternoon as well. Not quite as dry actually Wednesday there, but you can see some portions of Oregon it is. And again, that dew point depression approaching or even exceeding 60 degrees there, the difference in temperature and dew point. Now, taking a look at what is to come here. So this is the big weather maker as we go through the end of the week. So I'm going to put this into motion. A European on the left, GFS on the right, 500 millibars, 18,000 feet. Gives you a great idea of general ridge and trough position. Of course, troughs, more clouds, more precipitation, cooler, rising air, and you can see it setting up shop here across Pacific Northwest as we go on in through the day on Friday. This is really going to be moving right over the top of us here, bringing some decent precipitation amounts, some thunderstorm potential even for western Washington, western Oregon, southwest BC, west of the Cascades, and then of course thunderstorm potential will exist across portions of the Intermountain West and eastern Washington, Oregon, for example. Also, pretty good model agreement as we scroll out towards about hour 140 right there as the trough is here along the west coast of North America across the Intermountain West, and the ridge gets going here out over the Pacific Ocean, but that ridge is not showing much signs of trying to build back across Pacific Northwest in the wake of this. Again, stay tuned for the extended forecast here as we go. Now, looking at 6-hour precipitation. So you can see some of this precipitation moving towards the Washington coastline, better amounts for Vancouver Island as we go through the day today. And we go on in through tomorrow morning. You see some of that precipitation coming across western Washington, southwest BC, portions of western Oregon. And if nothing else, it's going to keep the clouds around and bring those temperatures down here over the day on Wednesday. So we go through Wednesday, we dry out a bit here on Thursday, as you can see, but then the trough starts to drop down across the region as we go through Thursday night into Friday morning. You can see that precipitation offshore starting to pivot across the area. Probably going to kick off some stronger thunderstorms here across some of the Rocky Mountains of Alberta, BC, Idaho, Montana, and then you see the trough starting to bring precipitation, much needed here for western Washington and western Oregon as we go through the day on Friday. And notice this low pressure system fairly slow moving. This would be wraparound moisture moving across British Columbia, back down across western Washington, Oregon on the day Saturday as well. So a couple rainy days possible coming up here. And then you can see the surface low out here across portions of Alberta as we're still in the trough. Still could get some residual showers here on the day Sunday as well. And then probably looking at a drying trend as we go through next week. But if we look at 500 millibars, I like to show these, these images here as far as the temperatures aloft, and you can see why this is going on. And this cooler air aloft helps to stabilize things, and this is what's going to bring our next round of precipitation, at least on the day Friday and Saturday. So you can kind of see that trough really carving out here, and the polar opposite versus the big heat dome here across the region. So enjoy this while it lasts. We'll see how long this holds on, but June's looking pretty troughy so far, but no promises as we head off in towards July. Now the North American model also showing something similar here as well. Again, at 18,000 feet, you can clearly see by the time we get on towards the day Friday, that trough in the upper level low will be right across Pacific Northwest. Now total precipitation in inches. This is the European ensemble mean. This is the average of all 50 ensemble members. Of those 50 ensemble members, we tweak each one of them and try to correct for our misunderstandings in the initial conditions of the atmosphere, and we let those play out. And so then we go off into the future here, and you can see the average. Look at that, almost up towards a half an inch for Seattle by the time we get towards the end of the weekend. Look at this, more for Portland here. Look at the Cascades of Oregon. Some places getting up over an inch, even 2 inches locally. British Columbia getting a nice soaking here. Vancouver Island, the Olympic Mountains, some of the coastal areas, especially the coastal range of Oregon, up over an inch of precipitation by the time we get towards Sunday night. Even with this upper level low, could bring some precipitation here to some of the dryland farming areas out there, maybe suppressing those dust levels for a few days across portions of Ritzville. And yeah, you could bring some precipitation there as well. Of course, more will fall across the higher terrain. Now, looking at the National Blend of models, let's see what it says as far as precipitation amounts as we go through Wednesday. It doesn't show much for Seattle at all. Maybe a little bit out there, enough to wet the ground, a few hundredths of an inch as we go through the day on Wednesday. But again, as we go through the weekend, the stronger system arrives, and you can see Seattle getting up towards 0.4 of an inch, over half an inch for Portland. And again, you can kind of see a little bit of precipitation. It's not a lot, but it's kind of interesting at this time of year. We don't get much here across the Columbia Basin and east of the mountains. It can be tough to do so. But yeah, check it out. As we go through the day on Sunday, you can see some of this precipitation falling here across the region, higher across the Cascades of Washington and Oregon. So looking at lightning flash density potential, we're going to scroll off in towards Wednesday afternoon. There's Thursday afternoon here. You can see the thunderstorms returning for some of eastern Oregon, Idaho, and Montana. But as we go on in towards Friday, you see some of this instability here is going to be present across some of western British Columbia, western Washington, western Oregon. So we could get a thunderstorm or two associated with this upper level low as it moves across the area. Then we go on in through Saturday afternoon. You see it destabilizing here east of the mountains. And then we go on in through Sunday, kind of still under the influence of this trough. We'll see if we can kick off a thunderstorm here west of the Cascades one more time. We'll revisit that when we get a little bit closer here, probably tomorrow and the next day with some of the high resolution models. Now, look at today, Tuesday, June 17th. Look at Seattle, 76 degrees, up towards 80 for Portland. And then we go to tomorrow, Wednesday. We drop those temperatures back down and start to move that system, that next week system in here. And we go Thursday. But look at Friday, 64 degrees only for Seattle. So we're really going to drop these temperatures off. And look at Saturday, again, with the upper level low, rapid moisture back around the area. That is going to keep temperatures suppressed. Look at this, only 60s east of the Cascades here, and some 50s out there, widespread for portions of eastern Oregon, only into the lower 60s for the Willamette Valley and Boise, into maybe upper 60s there as well. Then we go to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Looks like we're going to get a bit of a warming trend here, at least temporarily, as we go through the following weeks. Look at that, Seattle, 80 degrees by next Tuesday. And then we go Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Take that with a grain of salt right now. But if we look at the artificial intelligence, European, this is, again, 18,000 feet. There's the Pacific Northwest where I am circling to the upper right of this image, Hawaiian Islands. The bottom left is the state of California. Put this into motion, and you can see this trough carving itself out right over the top of the Pacific Northwest. By the time we get towards Friday, during the day Friday, troughing hangs out a bit here, but then it starts to get out of there, and we start to build a little bit of a ridge, maybe just enough to warm us up like I showed you on the National Blend of models, at least temporarily so. But then you can kind of see this trough is going to be with us, Pacific High, well out here far enough to allow for some of that northwest and keep the onshore flow going here as we go towards the end of the month. And this trough kind of hangs out as we go through the end of June. No sign of any big heat wave, at least just yet. But we got to watch this as we go into the early July. If this ridge starts to get a little bit closer, that could start to warm us back up. But we'll see how that goes. And if I scroll out a little bit further, you see even another trough way off in Fantasyland. Now, the European ensemble mean is really the gold standard on 500 millibar positions, troughs, ridges, and whatnot. And let's see what it has to say. Well, pretty good agreement here in the short term, of course, with the next system coming up this weekend. This is going to be kind of an interesting one, carved right out across Pacific Northwest, like I mentioned. And then we go on in towards, and continue through the second half of June here, and you can kind of see the troughing is still apparent here as we go through about June 26th. You can see some of this raging out of the Pacific, but the troughing is still there across the west coast North America. And you see it's not in any hurry to go anywhere. Definitely no sign of any big heat dome or big ridge here for the region as we go all the way off in towards July 1st. But again, we'll revisit this, on a daily or, maybe a couple times a week at least to see what's coming off in the extended future to see when the next or when the first heat wave is going to hit here for the Pacific Northwest as we go on in through July. Now, 2-meter temperature anomaly here. This is a 10-day running total. If I put this into motion, you can kind of see as we go through the end of the month into early July, European ensemble mean kind of keeping things below normal for the most part here across the Pacific Northwest. Now, 6 to 10-day temperature outlook, as you can imagine, below normal and above normal here as we go through June 26th. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, something interesting here. I got some good comments here on how the channel is doing. This is lifetime. Since I started the channel on June 24th, I wasn't doing videos regularly then, but I started probably in about November of 2021. And you can see this is watch time hours. You can see how the channel has grown over time. And what you're looking at here with the blue line is Seattle. Portland is the green line. You can go all the way down the list here, and I can even export this and see who's watching from what city. I can see how long you guys are watching for example. So yeah, pretty fun stuff that you can look at here in the YouTube channel. But look at this. We're approaching 20 million views since this channel was created. I would have never imagined that it would have gotten so much traction. But yeah, very fun. And I mean, look at the watch time hours. What are we looking at here? Almost 1.6 million watch time hours. And yeah, 20 million views. We're almost there. We'll probably get there here in the next month or so. Average view duration, 4 minutes and 49 seconds. So not bad there as well. And you can also do this. So this is what we're looking at here. This is based on country. So I can look down and see all these different countries that have been watching and how long they watch for example. And you can see, look at the Bahamas. Watches for an average of almost 4.5 minutes per video, even though it's only gotten 421 views for there. But you can see the United States, almost 18 million views. Canada, 1.2 million views almost. Mexico, United Kingdom. But yeah, you can export that and you can see some really obscure countries where people have watched some of the videos. So it's always fun to look through this. There's so much stuff you can do. So you can even look by gender and viewer age and all kinds of stuff. You can see what, if you're watching from a tablet or a TV or all kinds of crazy stuff here. So pretty fun stuff there on the YouTube analytics page. So anyway, yeah, I'm rambling on a bit here. I will get this video out. Hopefully you guys are having a good day. Click like and subscribe. We'll do this all again tomorrow and I will talk to you guys then.